Think you know it all about the Philippines? Put aside the tropical beaches and bright smiles. There's a whole new Philippines waiting to be discovered. How can a country dubbed the most sinful country in 2025 still be so charming and worth living in? Welcome to Philippines, Real Life Uncovered, a special episode of our travel documentary series, where every island, every market, every face has an unimaginable story. Let's get started. 1. 7,641 islands don't follow a pattern. You think all the islands are the same, just white sand and blue water? But in the Philippines, each island is like a separate world. So what makes these 7,641 islands so different that they surprise the world? The Philippines is more than just a country, it is a natural maze stretching out into the ocean, where each island has its own distinct climate, terrain and pace of life. Of those thousands of islands, just the 11 largest ones account for 95% of the country's area. Luzon, the Northern Pillar, Mindanao, the Wild South, and Visayas, the cultural heartland, form the three main island groups symbolizing the three stars on the Philippine flag. Each region has its own language, cuisine and history. Some islands are tourist paradises, while others are as pristine as if no human has ever set foot on them. There are places where you have to travel for hours by wooden boat to reach a small village hidden behind coconut trees, where time seems to stand still. Such diversity is not just a geographical statistic, it is an invitation to endless exploration, where each landing is a new journey. 2. At the foot of a volcano, living with natural disasters. You think living near a volcano is crazy? But millions of Filipinos have chosen to live right next to the red-hot mouth of fire. Why would a country accept living amid nature's fury? Straddling the Pacific Ring of Fire, the most seismically active region on the planet, the Philippines is home to more than 300 volcanoes, of which 24 are still smoldering every day. Mount Mayon, considered a perfect masterpiece of nature thanks to its perfectly symmetrical cone, is also the country's most active volcano, erupting on average every 8 years. During its most recent eruption in 2023, more than 14,000 people were evacuated. Near the capital Manila, the tall volcano, small but dangerous, once submerged a series of villages under layers of ash in a disaster in 2020, causing more than $1 billion in damage. And not stopping at volcanoes, the country also has to endure an average of 20 major storms each year, including at least 5 super typhoons with terrifying destructive power. Super Typhoon Haiyan in 2013, with winds exceeding 300 kilometers per hour, became one of the most severe climate disasters in Asia's history. But the strange thing is, the Filipino people did not leave that land. They learned to live with the fierce nature, building warning systems, shelters, and an incredibly optimistic spirit. Is it possible that this resilience is their most valuable resource? 3. Manila, the world's smallest capital but suffocatingly crowded. You think a large capital would bring spaciousness? But Manila is the opposite, suffocatingly small. Why is a city only larger than Condao Island a crowded place for millions of people? Only 42.88 square kilometers wide, smaller than most districts in large cities, but the capital Manila is home to nearly 2 million people. In terms of population density, it is the top in the world, with more than 70,000 people per square kilometer. Every road, bus station, building, and residential area is packed with people, noise, and dust. The strange thing is that despite being so crowded, Manila has not lost its special charm. The ancient Spanish churches, the 16th century walled intramuros, and the narrow alleys filled with laughter, all create a lively symphony between the past and the present. However, the high population density also brings Manila with countless challenges, constant traffic jams, heavy air pollution, and a severe housing shortage. So what makes millions of people choose to live here, amidst the hustle and bustle? 4. Jeepney, the strangest vehicle in Southeast Asia. Where else can a public vehicle look like a military truck, painted in bright colors and equipped with flashing lights? It can only be the Philippines. But why did such a strange-looking vehicle become a national symbol? Jeepneys were born from American military jeeps left behind after World War II. Filipinos have recycled them into passenger vehicles, decorated with bright colors, religious images, comics, and even flashing LED lights. Each jeepney is like a mobile work of art with a strong personal touch. Despite having no air conditioning, close-packed seats, loud engines, and billowing exhaust fumes, jeepneys are still loved by the people because they are cheap, convenient, and accessible. Millions of Filipinos rely on this rustic means of transportation to go to work, school, and the market every day. However, as urbanization and modernization spread, the government began to replace jeepneys with electric cars or new buses to reduce pollution. This caused a big debate. Should jeepneys be preserved as a cultural icon or should they be abandoned for the sake of the environment and safety? 5. 170+ languages. How do Filipinos understand each other? A country with more than 170 different languages. Sounds like a nightmare of division, right? But the Philippines surprises the world because its diverse languages do not divide them, but on the contrary, unite them in their own way. How is that possible? In fact, each region in the Philippines has its own mother tongue. Cebuano in the Visayas, Ilocano in the north, Hiligaynon in the central. However, all of them learn Tagalog, Filipino, in school, and use it as the official language in the media, government and education. As a result, people become bilingual masters from a young age. Not stopping there, English is also widely used as a second language. This makes it easy for Filipinos to access the world, study abroad, work internationally and travel. Rather than being divided by multilingualism, the Philippines has chosen to embrace diversity, turning it into a global competitive advantage. Could this multilingualism be the secret to the country's smooth communication both domestically and internationally? 6. Swimming houses, when the sea is the ancestral land of the Filipinos. While many countries consider the sea as their border, Filipinos consider it their homeland. On the calm waves of the southern part of the archipelago, there are communities that live their entire lives without leaving the water. They don't need land, because they have boat houses. Have you ever heard of the Bajau, also known as the sea nomads? They are born on boats, grow up in the waves, and even get married in the middle of the ocean. Their homes are wooden huts built on rafts or bamboo poles, gently gliding with the tide, brightly colored as if floating in the middle of a picture of the sea and sky. Their life is simple but extremely resilient. They fish by diving deep without oxygen tanks, with just one breath lasting several minutes. Children learn to swim before they can walk. They eat, sleep, love, and exist with the sea. Is this a reminder that land has never been the boundary for human life? That there are completely different, but free, ways of living? 7. The island that forbids outsiders, and the mysterious people who live outside the flow of time. Among the thousands of picturesque islands in the Philippines, there is one place that even the locals dare not set foot on, North Sentinel Island, located near the southwestern border of the archipelago. This is not only an absolutely forbidden place for tourism, but also a land outside the modern world. Why is an island in the middle of a tourist paradise completely isolated? North Sentinel is home to the Sentinelese people, one of the last tribes on Earth that have never had contact with the outside world. They speak no known language, use no technology, and refuse to accept any form of contact. Any attempt to get close is rejected with bows and arrows. The governments of the Philippines and India have officially banned access to protect their cultural integrity, and the safety of outsiders. Science calls them primitives who live outside of time. But for many Filipinos, they are a reminder that not all the wonders of the world are meant to be explored. If you were standing on a boat looking at that island, would you dare step off, and trade the modern world for the most ancient thing left? 8. The world's largest barehanded eating festival, and the Filipinos' borderless spirit. In many parts of the world, food is served on plates, eaten with knives and forks, at formal parties. But in the Philippines, there is a tradition that leaves visitors in awe, the Kamayan party, where hundreds of people gather to eat with their bare hands on banana leaves that stretch out like a river. Why, in the middle of the 21st century, does a seemingly backward ritual exist that everyone is proud to preserve? Kamayan is not just a way of eating, it is a bonding ritual, a community festival, where all classes, rich and poor, strangers and acquaintances sit together without barriers. People will prepare sticky rice, grilled fish, grilled meat, fruit, all arranged in long rows on banana leaves. No plates, no spoons. Just hands, and open hearts. That's how Filipinos say, I share not just food, but also friendship. Would you dare to put down your phone, put down your silverware, and sit down with strangers, To feel the wordless connection of a meal with your bare hands? 9. Living bridges, where humans weave architecture from. Tree roots. When we think of bridges, we often imagine steel, cement, or wood. But in a remote mountainous region of the Philippines, there is a type of bridge that baffles modern architects: bridges woven from living tree roots. How can humans grow a bridge that can still be used after hundreds of years? The Ifugao people in the highlands have learned to utilize the roots of wild rubber trees, guiding them to grow interwoven across streams, little by little, over many generations. Each bridge takes 10, 20, even 50 years to complete, but once formed, it becomes a resilient living creature, self-repairing over time, resistant to floods, storms, and still carrying the shape of absolute patience. No concrete, no harm to nature. That bridge is a symbol of the symbiosis between man and the forest. Stepping onto that bridge woven from tree roots, you not only cross a stream, but also touch a philosophy of life that is deeply rooted in the soil, the wind, and the consciousness of the Filipino people. In today's fast-paced world, how many people are willing to wait for something beautiful that takes half a lifetime to complete? 10. The floating cemetery, where the dead are hanging on cliffs as a sacred secret. When we think of cemeteries, we often imagine rows of graves lying silently underground, covered in green grass or carved stone. But in the high mountains of Sagada, Philippines, people don't bury their dead, they hang them in the sky. Why would a community choose to place the coffins of their ancestors between steep cliffs, as if defying gravity and time? This is not a strange ritual, but an ancient ritual of the Igorot people, with the belief that the closer to heaven, the easier it is for the soul to be liberated. Small pine coffins, sometimes carved by the deceased before they died, are tied to the vertical cliffs. Some have been there for hundreds of years, rotting but not falling, as if the earth and sky were protecting them. Standing in the middle of the deep green valley, looking up at the jagged cliffs full of hanging coffins, we cannot help but shiver, not because of fear, but because of the sacredness that is present. Death, here, is not the end, but a journey, where the living and the dead still mingle through the mountain wind and the clouds. If death is the final door, would you choose to lower yourself to the ground, or fly up to leave a silent mark in the sky? The Philippines is more than just a beach paradise, it's a treasure trove of vibrant, sometimes unbelievably bizarre, cultures. From hanging coffins to matriarchal villages to bridges made of living roots, there are stories here that maps never reveal. If these surprise you, it might be time to discover them for yourself. This is part of our travel documentary series, where we tell fascinating stories from around the world. Like, subscribe and share so you don't miss out on our next adventures. Are you ready for your next trip?